No one understood the Chinese millionairess until a homeless woman answered in fluent Chinese. Grace Zhang was shouting incomprehensible words in the middle of the most luxurious mall in New York City while desperately clutching her imported leather purse. Security guards approached unsure what to do, as nobody could understand what the 73-year-old woman was saying in rapid Mandarin. That's when a disheveled woman collecting cans in the parking lot approached and responded in perfect Chinese, instantly calming the elderly woman. "Ma'am, everything is all right. Take a deep breath," said Jessica in fluent Mandarin, placing her hand on Grace Zhang's shoulder. The millionaire businesswoman, owner of the largest Asian import network in the country, immediately stopped shouting. Her eyes fixed on the woman before her, an American in her early 40s with torn clothes and unkempt hair. You speak Chinese?" asked Grace Zhang, still in Mandarin, her voice trembling. "Yes, I do. My name is Jessica. What happened?" The mall security guards tried to intervene, but Grace Zhang clung to Jessica's arm as if her life depended on it. "Please don't let them take me. My son, he wants to commit me. I'm not crazy," she whispered in Chinese. Jessica looked around and saw several people watching the scene with curiosity and discomfort. She helped Grace Zhang sit on a bench near the food court. "Calm down. Nobody's taking you anywhere. Would you like to tell me what's happening?" The businesswoman took a deep breath and began speaking in English mixed with Chinese, as if her mind couldn't organize the languages. "My son, Michael, he sold the company shares without telling me. When I found out this morning, I became very upset. I can't trust anyone anymore." Jessica nodded with understanding while observing the details of Grace Zhang's face. There was something familiar about those features, a strange feeling she couldn't explain. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. This really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. "Where do you live? Can I help you get home?" offered Jessica. "In the Upper East Side. But I don't want to go back now. Michael must be waiting for me with the lawyers." Grace Zhang studied Jessica's face for a few moments before continuing. "You remind me of someone. How did you learn Chinese?" "It's a long story," Jessica hesitated. "My mother taught me when I was a child." The answer seemed to awaken something in Grace Zhang. She took Jessica's hand and examined it carefully. "Your hands, they're just like those of a friend I had long ago. What was your mother's name?" Sarah Miller." Grace Zhang's face paled. She remained silent for long seconds, as if trying to process impossible information. "Sarah Miller, but she wasn't Chinese. She was American, worked for my family when I was young." Jessica felt her heart accelerate. Her mother had mentioned several times a Chinese family she worked for decades ago, but never gave many details. "You knew my mother? If it's the same Sarah, she saved my life. And my sister's too." The two women looked at each other in silence, each trying to understand the impossible coincidence that had brought them together. "Let's get out of here," suggested Grace Zhang, rising with difficulty. "I need to talk to you somewhere more private." Jessica helped the businesswoman walk toward the mall exit. In the parking lot, a uniformed driver waited beside a black Lexus. "Mrs. Zhang, Mr. Michael is worried. He called several times," informed the driver. "I'm not going home now, Chen. Take us to the office." "But ma'am, Mr. Michael said that—" "Chen, 40 years working for my family. Will you obey me or obey my son?" The driver bowed his head and opened the car door. Jessica hesitated before getting in. "Maybe it's better if I don't go. I don't want to cause trouble." "Please," Grace Zhang held her hand again. "I need to know if you're really the daughter of the Sarah I knew. If you are, I have something very important to tell you." During the ride to Midtown, Grace Zhang shared fragments of her story. She had arrived in the United States in the 1970s, still a teenager, fleeing political persecution in China with her family. "My father had a small import business. We started from scratch, without speaking English, without knowing anyone. Sarah was the first American who truly helped us." Jessica listened attentively, trying to connect the information with the few memories she had of her mother's stories. My mother never told me much about that time. She always said she worked for a special family, but that she had to leave for reasons I wouldn't understand. Sarah didn't have a choice, Grace Jiang sighed. My older brother fell in love with her. In our culture at that time it was unthinkable. My parents forced her to leave. The car stopped in front of an imposing commercial building in New York City. In the lobby, there was a golden plaque with the words Jiang International Imports Inc., founded in 1975. In the elevator, Grace Jiang seemed lost in thought. Jessica observed the businesswoman and noticed small signs of confusion, as if she sometimes forgot where she was. Ms. Grace Jiang, are you feeling all right? Some days are harder than others. The doctor says it's stress, but I know it's more than that. My memory has been confused, mixing the past with the present. They reached the 15th floor, where the company's main office was located. The rooms were elegant, decorated with dark wood furniture and Asian art objects. Grace Jiang went straight to an old cabinet in the corner of her office. With keys she took from her purse, she opened a secret drawer and took out an ornate wooden box. Over 45 years I've kept this, waiting for an opportunity to return it to Sarah or to someone in her family. Inside the box were old photographs, letters written in English and Chinese, and a small jade necklace. This necklace belonged to my grandmother. Before Sarah left, I gave it to her as thanks for everything she did for our family. She said she would keep it forever. Jessica recognized the necklace immediately. Her mother wore an identical piece and always said it was her most precious possession, but never explained its origin. My mother had a necklace just like this. She lost it when our house was robbed 15 years ago. Then you really are Sarah's daughter. Grace Jiang smiled with tears in her eyes. I knew it. The way you speak Chinese, your gestures, even the shape of your hands. Sarah taught you how she learned with us. The two women hugged emotionally. For Jessica, who had lost her mother 5 years earlier, it was like rediscovering a part of her history that seemed lost forever. But how did you learn Chinese so well? Asked Grace Jiang. My mother insisted I learn from childhood. She said one day I would understand why. During college, I did an exchange program in China and improved my skills. Sarah was always wise. And you? What do you do for a living? Jessica hesitated before answering. The truth was hard to admit to a successful businesswoman. I was a Chinese teacher in private schools, but 2 years ago, my mother got very sick. I spent all my savings on her treatment. After she passed, I couldn't work properly anymore. I lost my job, my home, now I live on the streets. Grace Jiang fell silent for a few minutes, processing the information. Sarah sacrificed herself for you, just as she sacrificed herself for my family. And now you're suffering alone. I didn't come here to ask for help, Jessica hurried to clarify. When I saw you at the mall, I just wanted to help, because you seem to be going through the same despair I once felt. Do you have somewhere to sleep tonight? There's a municipal shelter that stays open during winter. When it's full, I sleep at the bus terminal. Grace Jiang stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city. Her hands trembled slightly as she watched the street movement below. My younger sister, Julie Chen, came with me to the United States. Sarah took care of her as if she were her own daughter when Julie got sick with pneumonia. The doctors said she wouldn't survive, but Sarah stayed at the hospital for 3 weeks straight, caring for her day and night. Jessica approached the businesswoman, noticing her voice growing weaker. What happened to your sister? Julie recovered and returned to China years later to care for our elderly parents. She founded a school there where she teaches English to Chinese students. She always said she was inspired by Sarah. Grace Jiang turned to Jessica with a determined expression. You're staying at my house tonight. I won't take no for an answer. I can't accept. It would be too much of an intrusion. Sarah saved my sister. Now it's my turn to repay the favor by helping her daughter. At that moment, the office phone rang. Grace Jiang answered, and her expression immediately changed. Michael? Yes, I'm at the office. What do you mean you're coming here? There's no need. I'm already heading home. She hung up and turned to Jessica with concern. My son found out where I am. He's coming up now with the family lawyer. Maybe it's better if I leave. No, now more than ever, I want you to stay. Michael needs to understand that not everything in life can be solved with money and control. A few minutes later, the office door opened and a man about 45 years old entered, wearing an expensive suit. Behind him came another man, older, carrying a document briefcase. "Mother, you had me worried. Wang said you were with a stranger." Michael Zhang looked at Jessica suspiciously. "This is Jessica, daughter of a very important person to our family, and she's not a stranger." "Mother, you need to understand you can't go out alone anymore. This morning you forgot to take your medication, got confused with the company documents." "I forgot nothing. You sold the shares without consulting me. It was only 5% of the shares to a trusted investor. The company needs capital for expansion." Jessica watched the argument in silence, perceiving the tension between mother and son. It was evident Michael was genuinely worried about his mother, but also that Grace Zhang felt controlled and disrespected. "Mr. Wilson," Michael addressed the lawyer, "explain to my mother what we discussed about the guardianship process." "Mrs. Zhang," the lawyer opened his briefcase, "considering recent episodes of mental confusion and forgetfulness, it would be prudent to establish preventive guardianship to protect your interests." Grace Zhang became visibly upset. "You want to declare me incompetent? I'm the one who built this company from scratch." "It's not that, Mother. It's just legal protection. You'd still live at home. You just couldn't make important financial decisions alone. And who would make those decisions? You? I'm your only son. It's only natural that—" "Natural?" Grace Zhang interrupted. "Natural would have been you talking to me before selling parts of my company." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Jessica felt uncomfortable witnessing the family argument, but Grace Zhang gestured for her not to leave. "Jessica, help me explain to my son. Tell him how you learned Chinese." "Mrs. Zhang, perhaps this isn't the time." "Yes, it is. Michael, Jessica's mother worked for our family when you were a baby. Sarah Miller was the one who taught you your first words in English." Michael looked confused. "Mum, you're mixing things up again. The nanny who took care of me was named Debbie." "Debbie came later. Sarah was with us before you turned 2. Jessica decided to intervene. "Your mother isn't confused. My mother really did work for your family. She taught me Chinese because she said you were special to her." "And where is your mother now?" asked Michael, still skeptical. "She passed away 5 years ago." Michael's expression softened slightly. "I'm sorry, but that doesn't change the fact that my mother needs care." "I do need care," agreed Grace Zhang, "but not to be locked up like a helpless child." The lawyer cleared his throat discreetly. "Perhaps we can discuss this another time when you're feeling calmer." "I am calm. It's you who want to make decisions about my life without listening to me." Michael sighed deeply. "Mum, you've been forgetting important things. Yesterday you called the office 3 times asking the same question. The day before yesterday you left the house in your pajamas." "That happens when I get nervous, and I get nervous when I feel people are plotting behind my back." Jessica observed the family dynamic and began to understand that both sides had a point. Grace Zhang really showed signs of mental confusion, but Michael was also being too controlling. "May I suggest something?" she interjected politely. Everyone looked at her. What if Mrs. Zhang were consulted about all decisions, but also agreed to have someone trustworthy to help her organize her daily routine? "What do you mean?" asked Michael. "Your mother is still capable of understanding and making decisions about business matters. She just needs support so she doesn't forget daily details." Grace Zhang nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. I don't need a guardian. I need a personal assistant I can trust." "And who would that person be?" questioned Michael suspiciously. Grace Zhang looked at Jessica with a smile. "Someone who speaks fluent Chinese, understands our culture, and has all the patience in the world to care for difficult people." Michael immediately understood his mother's suggestion. "Mum, you barely know this woman." "I've known her family for 45 years. I trust Jessica more than I trust you right now." The tension in the room intensified. The lawyer tried to mediate. Perhaps it would be good to learn more about the young lady's background before making any decisions. My background is simple, Jessica replied, before Grace Zhang could speak. I have a degree in literature with a specialization in Mandarin, worked 10 years as a teacher, lost everything caring for my sick mother, and now live on the streets. I have nothing to hide. Michael studied Jessica for a few moments. If you really want to help my mother, will you agree to a background check? I'll accept any check you want to do. Grace Zhang stood up and walked to her desk. Enough discussion for today. Jessica is coming home with me, and tomorrow we'll talk about the details. Mom, Michael, you sold company shares without consulting me, but I can't invite someone to dinner at my house? The son realized he had lost the argument and sighed resignedly. Fine, but I want to speak with her privately first. No problem, agreed Jessica. Grace Zhang put away the box with photographs and prepared to leave. Michael approached Jessica while his mother wasn't looking. I don't know what your intentions are, but my mother is vulnerable. If you're trying to take advantage of the situation... I'm not trying to take advantage of anything, Jessica interrupted him. When I saw your mother at the mall, she was desperate. I just wanted to help because I know how that feels. Why were you really at the mall if you live on the streets? I was collecting cans in the parking lot. Each kilogram is worth $3. On a good day, I can make $15. The honest and direct answer caught Michael off guard. He had expected an elaborate excuse. Do you have family besides your mother? No, it was just the two of us. Friends? When you become homeless, you quickly find out who your true friends are. The list gets very small. Michael remained silent for a few seconds, processing the answers. If you accept working for my family, what would your expectations be? I have no expectations. Your mother offered me shelter tonight, and I'm grateful for that. Anything beyond that is her generosity. But would you accept a formal job? Jessica hesitated before answering. I would, but with a few conditions. What are they? First, I'm not a nurse or a professional caregiver. I can help with organization, translation, and companionship, but medical matters should be handled by professionals. I agree. What's the second? If your mother isn't satisfied with me or I feel I'm not helping, either of us can end the agreement without awkwardness. Fair. And the third? I want it to be clear that I'm not interested in inheritance, company shares, or any benefits beyond the agreed salary. Michael nodded slowly. The conditions were reasonable and showed Jessica had thought practically about the situation. Is there anything else? Yes. If I accept the job, I want your mother to continue being consulted about all important company decisions. My role would be to help her get organized, not to replace her judgment. That might be complicated. Then perhaps you should talk better among yourselves before involving other people. Grace Zhang approached the two. Have you finished talking about me as if I weren't here? Mom, I was just clarifying some points. Great. Now let's go home. I'm tired, and I want to show Jessica the photos of Sarah. During the drive to Grace Zhang's home in the Upper East Side, the businesswoman shared more details about the time when Sarah worked for her family. Your grandparents were very traditional. When we arrived in the United States, they wouldn't allow women in the family to go out alone or speak with strangers. Sarah was our first English teacher and our first American friend. She taught me some words in Mandarin when I was little, Jessica remembered. She always said it was so I would never forget where her patience came from. Sarah was indeed very patient. I was a rebellious teenager. I wanted to be like the American girls. Sarah explained how things worked here without disrespecting our culture. The car stopped in front of a large, elegant house with a well-kept garden and an electronic gate. Jessica felt intimidated by the luxury of the place. Mrs. Grace Zhang, are you sure you want to bring me to your home? I can stay at a hotel. With what money? Grace Zhang smiled. Besides, Wang has already prepared the guest room. How did he know I would stay? Because Wang has known my personality for 40 years. He knew I wouldn't let Anna's daughter sleep on the street. Michael got out of the car with them. I won't come in today, Mum, but I'll be back early tomorrow so we can talk better. You can come, but no lawyer. I want to talk with my son, not my guardian. Michael kissed his mother's forehead and waved politely to Jessica before leaving. The house was even more impressive inside. Ancient Chinese furniture mixed harmoniously with modern American pieces. There were family photographs from various moments throughout the decades. "Does Wang live here too?" asked Jessica. "He has a house in the back." Wang came from China with us when he was young. He's more a brother than an employee. An Asian man, about 60 years old, appeared in the living room. He greeted Grace Zhang in Chinese and looked curiously at Jessica. "Chen, this is Jessica, daughter of Sarah Miller." Chen's expression changed completely. He said something in Chinese to Grace Zhang, who replied in the same language. Then Chen bowed respectfully to Jessica. "Mrs. Sarah was very important to our family," he said in English with a heavy accent. "It's an honor to meet her daughter." "The pleasure is mine, Mr. Chen." "Chen took care of you when you were a baby," explained Grace Zhang. "He taught you to speak Chinese while Sarah taught you English." Jessica was moved to learn there were more people who had known her mother and could share stories about her. During dinner, served on antique Chinese porcelain, Grace Zhang showed several photographs from when Sarah worked for the family. There were images of traditional Chinese celebrations, the company's first year of operation, and some photos of Sarah holding a baby who must have been Michael. "Your mother was in the picture from our first store's opening," Grace Zhang pointed to a black and white image. "She helped with the decorations and organized the party." "Why did she have to leave?" Jessica asked directly. Grace Zhang and Chen exchanged uncomfortable glances. "It's a complicated story," began Grace Zhang. "My older brother, Philip, fell in love with Sarah. He wanted to marry her." "And what was the problem?" "My parents were very traditional. They didn't accept marriage between a Chinese and an American. They gave an ultimatum. Either Sarah left or the whole family would have to return to China." "And what did Sarah decide?" "She chose to leave to not harm our family." Philip was devastated. After a few years, he returned to China and never married again. Jessica processed the information in silence. Her mother had sacrificed herself to protect a family she loved. "Did Sarah try to stay in touch?" asked Chen in English. "She tried, but my parents forbade it. They thought any contact would make Philip suffer more." "And now? Is Philip still alive?" "He is. He lives in Beijing and runs a language school. He always asks about Sarah when we talk." Jessica felt a mix of emotions. There were relatives of her adoptive mother she had never met, people who cared about Sarah but were separated by circumstances. "Does he know that she passed away?" "No, I haven't been able to tell him. Philip always hoped that one day you could meet again." After dinner, Grace Zhang took Jessica to the guest room. It was a comfortable space with a double bed, private bathroom, and a view of the garden. "There are clean clothes in the closet. They might not fit perfectly, but they're better than what you're wearing." "Mrs. Zhang, I don't know how to thank you." "No need to thank me. Sarah did much more for us than I'm doing for you." Alone in the room, Jessica took a long, hot shower, something she hadn't done in months. She put on a simple nightgown she found in the closet and lay down on the soft bed. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe, but she was also confused about what the future might bring. She didn't want to take advantage of the situation, but she didn't have many options either. The next morning, she woke to the smell of coffee and fresh bread. She went down to the kitchen and found Chen preparing breakfast. "Good morning, Chen. Can I help?" "No need, Mrs. Jessica. Mrs. Zhang likes to have breakfast at 8 o'clock. "Where is she?" "Still sleeping. Yesterday was a very busy day for her." Jessica sat at the kitchen table and Chen served coffee and buttered bread. "Chen, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How is Mrs. Zhang's health really? Is Michael right to be worried?" Chen sighed before answering. "Mrs. Zhang has always been very smart and determined, but these past few months she's been forgetting small things. Sometimes she repeats conversations. Sometimes she doesn't remember if she took her medicine." "Is it serious?" "The doctor says it could be stress or the beginning of a memory problem. She needs more detailed tests, but she refuses." "Why does she refuse?" "She's afraid Michael will use the results to take control of her company." Jessica understood the dilemma. Grace Zhang was torn between taking care of her health and maintaining her independence. "Do you think she needs help?" I think she needs someone who understands Mandarin and English, who knows our culture, but who also won't try to control her. Someone like me. Perhaps. Mrs. Sarah always knew how to balance these things. At 8 o'clock sharp, Grace Zhang came down for breakfast. She looked more rested and put together than the day before. Good morning, Jessica. Did you sleep well? Very well, thank you. It had been a long time since I slept in such a comfortable bed. Great. Today I want to show you the company and see if you're interested in working with us. Before that, I'd like to talk about a few things. Of course, what do you want to know? First, I want to understand exactly what kind of help you need. I don't want to take on responsibilities I can't handle. Grace Zhang nodded, appreciating the honesty. I need someone to help me organize my schedule, remind me to take my medicine, accompany me to important meetings, and translate when necessary. I can do that. Second point, what would my official position be at the company? Personal assistant to the president. Salary of $8,000 a month, meal allowance, health insurance, and a year-end bonus. Jessica nearly choked on her coffee. It was more money than she had ever made as a teacher. That's very generous, but I wanted to be clear that if it doesn't work out, I can leave without it hurting our personal friendship. I agree. And you? What if I become more confused or difficult to deal with? I will help you the best I can, but medical issues are for qualified professionals. The two women shook hands to seal the agreement. At that moment, Michael arrived for breakfast. Good morning, Mother. Good morning, Jessica. Michael, you're just in time. Jessica has agreed to work as my personal assistant. That's great. What will her responsibilities be? Grace Zhang explained what they had agreed upon. Michael listened carefully and seemed satisfied with the terms. I have some conditions of my own too, he said. What are they? Asked Jessica. I want you to accompany my mother to all her medical appointments and keep me informed about any changes in her behavior. As long as Mrs. Zhang agrees, that's not a problem. I agree, said Grace Zhang. But you also have to agree to consult with me before making decisions about the company. Mother. Michael, yesterday you sold shares without telling me. That can't happen again. All right, I will consult you before any important decision. All important decisions, not just the ones you consider important. Michael sighed, but agreed. After breakfast, the three of them went to the company office. Jessica began to understand the scale of the Zhang family business. Besides the import company, they had investments in several areas. The company employs over 200 people, explained Michael. It started with my grandfather and my father importing basic goods from China. Today we import electronics, furniture, decorations, and food. At the office, Grace Zhang introduced Jessica to the key employees. The new assistant would be responsible for organizing the president's schedule and assisting with translations during meetings with Chinese suppliers. Your first task, said Grace Zhang, will be to help me organize the documents that have been missing for weeks. What do you mean missing? Important contracts, letters, proposals. I put them in one place and then can't find them again. Michael and Jessica exchanged looks. It was clear Grace Zhang was having more serious memory problems than she wanted to admit. Let's start by organizing your office, Jessica suggested diplomatically. They spent the entire morning cataloging documents and creating a simpler filing system. Jessica noticed that Grace Zhang sometimes lost her train of thought mid-explanation, but her reasoning ability remained intact. Ms. Grace Zhang, may I suggest something? Of course. What if we organize your routine so important things always stay in the same places? That way it's easier to remember. Good idea, how would that work? Important documents always in the right drawer, medicine always in the same spot in your bag, meetings always written down in the same notebook. Simple and practical. Sarah would think the same way. During lunch at a Chinese restaurant near the office, Grace Zhang shared more stories about Sarah and the Zhang family. Sarah wasn't just our employee. She became part of the family. That's why it was so hard when she had to leave. My mother never showed resentment, Jessica commented. She always spoke of you fondly. That was Sarah, very generous and understanding. Ms. Grace Jiang, may I ask a personal question? Go ahead. Do you have other children besides Michael? No, Michael is my only son. His father passed away 15 years ago. And you never thought about remarrying? I thought about it, but I never found someone who understood me like my husband did. Getting married at our age is complicated. Jessica nodded. Her own mother had never officially married, though she'd had some serious relationships. Did your mother marry? No. She said she had enough love for me and didn't need to share with anyone else. Sarah was always dedicated. Philip used to say she had a mother's heart, even though she was so young. After lunch, they returned to the office where Michael was in a meeting with suppliers. Jessica helped Grace Jiang prepare for a video conference with the company's branch in Beijing. You'll help me with the translation, requested Grace Jiang. Sometimes my Chinese gets muddled when I'm nervous. The meeting was about expanding business in the Chinese market. Jessica was impressed by Grace Jiang's ability to understand complex business matters, even when her memory failed on smaller details. You did very well, Jessica praised after the meeting. Thank you. Having someone who understands Chinese makes me feel more secure. At the end of the day, Grace Jiang invited Jessica to dinner at her home again. I want to show you more photos of Sarah, and I also want you to learn about some of our family traditions. During dinner, Wang served traditional Chinese dishes and shared stories from when Sarah was learning to cook Asian food. Ms. Sarah burned her first attempt at making dim sum, Wang laughed, but she didn't give up. She practiced until it was perfect. She made dim sum at home sometimes, Jessica remembered. She always said she learned from a special family. Sarah was determined. Just like you, observed Grace Jiang. How so? You could have accepted charity, but you chose to work. Sarah would have done the same thing. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. After dinner, Grace Jiang took Jessica to a room that served as a library. There were hundreds of books in Chinese, English, plus historical documents of the family. I want to show you something very special, said Grace Jiang, taking an old box from a high shelf. Inside the box were letters written by Sarah in English and translated into Chinese by Philip. Sarah wrote several letters to Philip after she left our home. She wanted to explain why she had made that decision. Jessica read the letters with tears in her eyes. Her mother had expressed the love she felt for the Jiang family and the pain of having to leave them. I hope one day you'll understand that leaving was proof of my love for your family, not the lack of it, Jessica read aloud. Sarah was always wise, sighed Grace Jiang. It took Philip years to understand that. Did he ever understand? Yes. In his recent letters, he always asks if Sarah was happy, if she had a good life. She was happy indeed. She worked as a teacher, made many friends, and raised me the best way possible. I want to tell Philip that. He'll be relieved to know. Do you still speak with him regularly? We talk once a month. He always says he'd like to meet Sarah's daughter. Jessica grew thoughtful. The idea of meeting someone who had loved her mother was both exciting and frightening. Maybe one day that'll be possible, she said. Perhaps sooner than you think. Philip mentioned coming to the United States next year to visit family. The following weeks established a comfortable routine for Jessica and Grace Jiang. Each morning, they reviewed the day's schedule and organized documents. In the afternoon, Jessica accompanied Grace Jiang to meetings, assisting with translations and notes. The new assistant developed subtle strategies to help Grace Jiang when her memory failed. A system of hand signals allowed Jessica to remind the businesswoman of important information without embarrassing her in front of others. Michael observed the pair with growing satisfaction. His mother was more organized and confident, while Jessica demonstrated competence and discretion. Jessica is doing excellent work, he commented to Chen. Mrs. Sarah chose her daughter well, replied Chen with a smile. What do you mean? Mrs. Sarah was like that too. She took care of people without making them feel weak. 1 month after starting work for the Jiang family, Jessica had fully adapted to her new life. She had permanently moved into the guest room and developed warm relationships with everyone. Jessica, Grace Zhang called one morning. "I want to ask you a special favor." "Of course. What do you need?" "I want you to accompany me to a doctor's appointment this afternoon." Jessica knew Grace Zhang had postponed this appointment several times. "Certainly. Which doctor are we seeing?" "Dr. Thompson, a memory specialist. Michael scheduled it weeks ago, but I kept making excuses." "What made you change your mind?" "Yesterday, I completely forgot an important meeting. I can no longer pretend nothing is happening." The appointment was at a private clinic in Greenwich Village. Dr. Thompson was a middle-aged man specializing in geriatrics and cognitive issues. "Mrs. Zhang, tell me about the symptoms you've been noticing." Grace Zhang described the episodes of forgetfulness, confusion with dates, and trouble finding objects. The doctor asked several questions and administered some simple tests. "I need to run some more detailed tests," said Dr. Thompson, "but based on the symptoms described, it could be early-stage mild cognitive decline." "Is it serious?" asked Jessica. "Not necessarily. There are treatments that can slow the progression and improve quality of life. The important thing is early identification." Grace Zhang remained silent during the drive home. Jessica respected her silence, understanding she needed time to process the information. "Jessica," Grace Zhang finally said, "I'm afraid of losing my independence." "You don't have to lose it," the doctor said. "With proper treatment and an organized routine, you can maintain your normal activities for a long time. Will you keep helping me?" "Of course. That's why I'm here." "What if I become more confused? What if I forget who you are?" Jessica stopped the car and turned to Grace Zhang. "Even if you forget my name, you won't forget I'm Sarah's daughter. And I'll never forget you're my mother's family." Grace Zhang cried for the first time since they'd met. Jessica hugged her, feeling the weight of the responsibility she had taken on. When they arrived home, Michael was waiting in the garden. "How was the appointment?" Grace Zhang told him the results honestly. Michael became worried, but also relieved to finally have a diagnosis. "What do we need to do now?" he asked. "Follow the medical treatment and keep Mrs. Grace Zhang's routine as normal as possible," replied Jessica. "Are you willing to keep helping, even though you know it might get harder?" "I am. My mother took care of difficult people her whole life. I learned from her." That night, during dinner, the family had an honest conversation about the future. They decided that Grace Zhang would remain active in the company, but with Jessica always present to assist her. "There's one thing I want to do while I'm still sure it's the right decision," said Grace Zhang. "What is it?" asked Michael. "I want to organize a trip to China. I want to see Philip one last time and introduce Jessica to him." "Mother, are you sure? It's a long and tiring trip." "That's exactly why I want to do it now. I don't know how I'll be a year from now." "I'll go with you," Jessica offered immediately. "Would you be up for seeing China?" "I would love to, and I'd also like to meet Philip." "Then it's decided. Let's start planning the trip." The following weeks were intense with preparation. Grace Zhang wanted to show Jessica all the important places from her history in China. She also wanted to introduce her to relatives who still lived in Beijing. "Philip is very anxious to meet you," Grace Zhang told her after a video call with her brother-in-law. "He kept all the letters Sarah wrote." "And he never married?" "Never. He says Sarah was the great love of his life, and that it would be unfair to another woman to try and replace her." Jessica was moved to learn that her mother had been so loved by someone she barely knew. The trip to China was scheduled for the following month. Michael organized all the details, including medical support in case Grace Zhang needed it. "Jessica," Michael said the day before the trip, "I want to thank you for everything you've done for my mother." "You don't need to thank me. Your mother gave me a new chance at life." "Even so, I want you to know that you've become part of our family. No matter what happens with my mother's health, you will always have a place here." "Thank you, Michael. That means a lot to me." On the day of the trip, Chen insisted on accompanying them to the airport. He was emotional about the reunion that was about to happen. "Philip will be very happy," he said to Jessica. He always wanted to meet Sarah's family. During the 15-hour flight to Beijing, Grace Zhang told detailed stories about her childhood in China and what life was like before she came to the United States. "When we arrived in the United States, I was 17 and didn't speak a word of English. Sarah was our first teacher and our first friend. How did you communicate at first? Gestures, drawings, a lot of patience. Sarah would bring illustrated books and teach us one word a day. She was persistent like that. Sarah never gave up on anything. That's how I know you won't give up either. They arrived in Beijing in the late afternoon local time. The airport was huge and modern, very different from what Jessica had imagined. Philip was waiting in the arrivals area. He was a 70-year-old man with graying hair, wearing a simple but elegant suit. When he saw Grace Zhang, his eyes filled with tears. The siblings embraced for a long time, speaking rapidly in Mandarin Chinese. Then Philip turned to Jessica. "You are Sarah's daughter," he said in English with a strong accent. "You look like her when she was young." "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Philip. My mother always spoke highly of the Zhang family. Sarah was special to all of us. Come, I want to show you something." Philip took them to his home, a comfortable apartment in a traditional Beijing neighborhood. The walls were decorated with photographs of the Zhang family, including several where Sarah appeared. "I've kept all these photos for 45 years, explained Philip. "Sarah is in almost all of them." Jessica observed the images with fascination. It was like seeing her mother's history through the eyes of people who loved her. "This one is my favorite." Philip showed a photo where Sarah was teaching baby Michael to speak. Sarah had endless patience with children. She was always like that. She worked with children her whole life. Was Sarah happy in the United States? Yes, she was. She was a fulfilled person, satisfied with her choices. Philip smiled with relief. "I always worried if she had regretted leaving." She never regretted it. She used to say some decisions hurt at first, but time shows they were right. During the 10 days they spent in China, Jessica experienced many aspects of Chinese culture that her mother had mentioned over the years. They visited Buddhist temples, traditional markets, and the language school Philip had founded. "This school was inspired by Sarah," explained Philip. "She taught me that languages are bridges between cultures, not barriers." At the school, Jessica met dozens of Chinese students learning English to work or study in the United States. Many were moved to learn she was the daughter of the person who had inspired the school's creation. "Your mother influenced more lives than you realize," commented Grace Zhang. "How so?" "All these students learning English here go to the United States prepared. Sarah indirectly helped hundreds of Chinese families adapt to your country. On the last day of the trip, Philip organized a special ceremony at the temple where the Zhang family used to pray when they were young. "I want to honor Sarah's memory," he explained, "and thank her for everything she did for our family." The ceremony was simple but moving. Philip lit incense and prayed in Chinese, asking for protection for Sarah in the spiritual world. Then, he gave Jessica a special gift. "This was the necklace Sarah wore when she worked for our family," he said, showing a jade piece identical to the one Grace Zhang had kept. "I want you to have it. But it's your keepsake of my mother. Now it's my family's keepsake for you. Sarah will always be part of us, and so will you." Jessica put on the necklace and felt a deep connection with her mother and with the family that had emotionally adopted her. "Thank you, Philip. I will treasure it forever. When you return to the United States, continue taking care of Grace Zhang as Sarah would. Our family needs people like you. I promise I will take the best possible care of her." Back in the United States, the trip had further strengthened the bonds between Jessica and Grace Zhang. The businesswoman was more at peace, knowing she had fulfilled her promise to introduce Sarah's daughter to Philip. "Now I can face anything that comes," said Grace Zhang. "I know Sarah would be proud of us both." She would. And Philip was also very happy to meet us. "He asked me to take care of you like Sarah took care of our family. It's a responsibility I accept with joy." The following months were a period of adjustment to the new reality. Grace Zhang's medical treatment was stabilizing her condition, and the routine organized by Jessica was working well. "Michael," Grace Zhang said one morning, "I want to make some changes at the company." "What kind of changes?" "I want to create a social responsibility department focused on helping Chinese immigrants arriving in the United States." "That's a good idea, but why now?" "Because Sarah taught me that financial success without social purpose is empty. I want to give back what our family received. How would this department work? Jessica will coordinate it. She understands both cultures and can develop integration programs. Jessica was surprised by the proposal. Mrs. Grace Zhang, I have no management experience. You have experience in education and overcoming difficulties. That's more than enough. But my main responsibility is taking care of you. This project will be part of our work together. I want it to be my legacy. The new department was named the Sarah Miller Foundation, in honor of the woman who had inspired the initiative. Jessica developed Portuguese language programs for Chinese immigrants, courses on American culture, and support for document regularization. This project is making more of a difference than I imagined, Michael commented after 6 months of operation. How so? We've already helped over 300 Chinese families, and our company has gained an excellent reputation in the community. Grace Zhang was radiant seeing the project's success. Sarah would be proud knowing her name is helping so many people. She really would, Jessica agreed. She always believed small gestures could change lives. 1 year after the Sarah Miller Foundation began, Philip came to the United States to see the initiative in person. He was impressed with the structure created and the impact on the Chinese community. You've transformed Sarah's memory into something living and useful, he said emotionally. That's what she would do if she were here, Jessica replied. I have a proposal for you, Philip announced. What is it? Asked Grace Zhang and Jessica in unison. I want to expand the project to China, create a similar program for Americans who want to study or work there. The proposal was ambitious, but made sense. With growing trade relations between the United States and China, many Americans were seeking opportunities in the Asian country. It would be like a two-way bridge, Philip explained. Chinese people learning about the United States here, Americans learning about China there. And how would it work in practice? Asked Michael. Professional exchanges, study programs, business partnerships, all within the spirit of what Sarah always advocated, unity through mutual understanding. Grace Zhang was excited by the idea. I want this to happen. It would be the realization of everything Sarah believed in. But it would be a very large project, Jessica considered. We would need extensive planning and resources. Resources we have, Michael assured, and planning we can develop together. Philip, do you really believe this is feasible? Asked Jessica. I do. And more importantly, I know Sarah would approve. The expansion project took 1 year to structure. Jessica traveled to China several times, working with Philip to establish partnerships and develop programs. You're becoming an expert in US-China relations, Grace Zhang joked. I'm learning that my mother prepared me for this without me knowing. How so? She taught me Chinese, told me about the culture, taught me to respect differences, everything I need for this work. Sarah was always visionary. She knew you would need these skills one day. During this period, Grace Zhang's health remained stable. The medical treatment, combined with the organized routine and renewed purpose, had significantly slowed the progression of symptoms. The work with the project is good for her, Dr. Thompson observed during a consultation. Having a clear purpose helps greatly in maintaining cognitive functions. And in my case, asked Jessica, how can I best help her? Keep doing what you've been doing. Maintain the routine, stimulate her mind with meaningful activities, and be present without being invasive. Doctor, how much longer can she maintain this quality of life? Hard to say. It could be years, it could be decades. The important thing is to cherish each good day we have. 2 years after the project began, the inauguration of the Chinese branch was scheduled to coincide with Sarah's birthday. Jessica and Grace Zhang traveled to Beijing for the ceremony. I never imagined I'd be opening a school named after my mother in China, said Jessica emotionally. Sarah also never imagined that such a painful decision would result in something so beautiful, replied Grace Zhang. The inauguration ceremony was attended by local authorities, American and Chinese business people, and dozens of students from both countries. Today we inaugurate more than a school, said Philip in his speech. We inaugurate a human bridge between two cultures, inspired by the example of a woman who taught that true love sometimes requires sacrifice. Jessica was invited to speak about her mother and the project. Sarah Miller taught that small acts of kindness can grow and touch many lives. Today we see the result of her patience, her dedication, and her love for a family she adopted as her own. After the ceremony, Jessica and Grace Zhang visited the graves of Grace Zhang's grandparents in Beijing. It was the first time the businesswoman had returned to the site in over 40 years. "I wish they knew that Sarah was the best thing that happened to our family," said Grace Zhang, placing flowers on the grave. "They know," replied Jessica. "And Sarah also knows she found the right family to love." On the flight back to the United States, Grace Zhang asked to discuss something important. "Jessica, I need to talk to you about my plans for the future." "Of course. What are you thinking?" "I want to document that you have a right to a portion of the company." "Mrs. Zhang, we've already talked about this. I don't want an inheritance." "It's not an inheritance. It's recognition. You transformed our company and our family. You deserve to be a partner, not just an employee." "But what about Michael? Does he agree with this?" "It was his idea. He said you've proven to be a Zhang at heart, even if not by blood." Jessica was moved by the proposal but hesitated. "I need to think carefully. It's a very big responsibility. Take all the time you need, but know that Sarah would be proud seeing you as the successor to the work she started." Back in the United States, the project was performing beyond expectations. Hundreds of Americans had already participated in programs in China, and thousands of Chinese had benefited from services in the United States. "Jessica," said Michael, "I want to formalize your position in the company." "What do you mean?" "I propose you become director of the Sarah Miller Foundation with a 20% ownership stake in the company." "That's very generous, but..." "It's not generosity. It's justice. You transformed our company from a simple importer into an organization with social purpose." "And your mother agrees?" She suggested the percentage. She said 20% represents the 20 years that Sarah worked indirectly for our family through you. Jessica accepted the proposal, understanding it was more than professional recognition. It was a way to honor her mother and ensure the continuity of the work she valued so much. The formalization ceremony took place at the company office with all employees present. Grace Zhang gave an emotional speech about Sarah's importance in the family's history. "Today we're not just giving Jessica an ownership stake," she said. "We're recognizing that some people enter our lives to change them forever." Chen, who had followed the entire journey, also wanted to speak. "Mrs. Sarah planted seeds of kindness 45 years ago. Today we see the harvest through her daughter." After the ceremony, Jessica called Philip to share the news. "Sarah would be very proud," he said emotionally. "She always knew you were special." "How could she know? I was just a child when she died." "Mothers always know. Sarah wrote me several letters talking about you, about her dreams for your future." "What dreams?" "She wanted you to find a family that would value you as she valued you." Mission accomplished. 3 years after starting to work for the Zhang family, Jessica was fully integrated into both the business and the family. The Sarah Miller Foundation had become a benchmark for cultural integration programs between the United States and China. "We've received a special invitation," Michael announced one morning. "From whom?" "From the Chinese consulate. They want to honor the Sarah Miller Foundation for its impact on the immigrant community." "It's an honor," said Grace Zhang. "Sarah deserves all possible recognition." The ceremony at the consulate was moving. The Chinese consul gave a speech highlighting the project's importance in strengthening relations between the two countries. The Sarah Miller Foundation represents the best of human nature, turning personal experiences into benefits for an entire community. Jessica received a merit medal on behalf of her mother. In her acceptance speech, she spoke about the values Sarah had instilled in her. "My mother taught me that every person we meet can change our life, and we can change theirs. The important thing is to be open to these connections." After the ceremony, Grace Zhang pulled Jessica aside. "I have a confession to make." "What is it?" "That day at the mall, when you found me, it wasn't a coincidence." "What do you mean?" "I had seen you collecting cans several times. There was something familiar about you that I couldn't place. When you spoke Mandarin, I understood you were Anna's daughter. You knew from the beginning. I suspected. You have the same gestures Sarah had when she was concentrating. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I wanted you to choose to stay of your own free will, not out of a sense of obligation to Sarah. Jessica hugged Grace Zhang affectionately. Even knowing that, my choice remains the same. You are my family now. And you are our daughter in our hearts, just as Sarah was our sister in our hearts. Over the years, Grace Zhang's health gradually deteriorated, but she managed to remain active for much longer than the doctors had predicted. Her sense of purpose has been crucial, explained Dr. Thompson. Knowing the project continues to grow motivates her to fight the illness. Jessica adapted her routine to accommodate Grace Zhang's increasing needs, always maintaining the businesswoman's dignity and autonomy. Jessica, Grace Zhang said one afternoon, I want you to know these have been the best years of my life since Sarah passed. Why? Because I managed to honor her memory the right way, and because I gained a daughter in the process. I'm the one who gained a second family. Sarah would be happy knowing her two families came together. I'm sure she is happy, wherever she is. At the end of that year, the Sarah Miller Foundation completed 5 years of operation. A big party was organized to celebrate the achievements and plan for the future. We've managed to help over 5,000 families, Jessica announced to the guests. We've built bridges between cultures, created job opportunities, and most importantly, given hope. Philip came from the United States, especially for the party. During his speech, he revealed a special surprise. I want to announce the creation of the Sarah Miller Foundation, funded by the Zhang family and Chinese business people who benefited from the project. What will this foundation do? Asked Jessica. Expand the project to other countries. We want to create similar programs throughout Latin America and Asia. Sarah would become a posthumous ambassador for international cooperation, said an emotional Grace Zhang. She deserves that honor, Jessica agreed. She always believed people are more alike than different, no matter where they're born. The party ended with a Buddhist Thanksgiving ceremony, led by a monk from the temple the Zhang family attended in New York City. Sarah Miller continues to live through the lives she touched and the lives those people continue to touch, said the monk. 6 months after the party, Grace Zhang began to show signs of significant decline. Her short-term memory was severely compromised, though she could still remember old events clearly. Jessica, she said one difficult afternoon, sometimes I don't remember your name, but I never forget that you are Sarah's daughter. That's all that matters. Our bond goes beyond names. Promise me you'll continue the project even when I'm no longer here. I promise, but you'll still be here for a long time. Maybe, maybe not. What matters is that Sarah lived forever through you. Michael decided to reduce his outside commitments to spend more time with his mother. He had learned to cherish every lucid moment they still had. Jessica, he said, I want you to know my mother was happier in these last few years than she had been since my father's death. She gave me far more than she received. That's not true. You gave her back her purpose in life, and you taught me to be a better son. How so? By watching how you care for her, I understood that caring isn't controlling. It's being present while respecting the person's autonomy. 2 years later, during a quiet Sunday morning, Grace Zhang had a more severe episode. She didn't recognize where she was and became very agitated. Where is Sarah? She asked in Chinese. I need to speak with Sarah. Jessica sat beside her and calmly replied in Chinese. Sarah can't come today, but she sent her regards through me. Do you know Sarah? Yes, I do. She taught me everything about caring for special people like you. Sarah is truly special. She saved our family. And now she continues to save through the people who learned from her. Grace Zhang gradually calmed down, though she didn't fully recognize where she was. You look like someone I knew, she said to Jessica. Perhaps I remember Sarah when she was younger. That's it. You have her eyes. She taught me to look with tenderness upon the people I love. Moments like this became more frequent, but Jessica developed strategies to calm Grace Zhang even when she didn't fully recognize her. What's important is that in her lucid moments, she is still herself, observed Dr. Thompson, and she continues to be happy, which is rare in cases like hers. The Sarah Miller Foundation continued to grow even with Grace Zhang's limitations. Jessica took over the operational management completely, always consulting the businesswoman during her more alert moments. "The project now has a life of its own," said Philip during a visit. "Sarah would be proud to see her influence keeps expanding. Sometimes I feel she is still here guiding our steps," Jessica confessed. "She is. Every person we help carries a little bit of her forward." During the last months, when Grace Zhang could still participate in the project's activities, she made a point of being present at the English course graduation ceremonies. "Seeing the happy faces of the immigrants reminds me why all this began," she would say. At the last ceremony she was able to actively participate in, Grace Zhang gave a moving speech. "When Sarah Miller came to our house 45 years ago, she didn't know she was planting the seeds of all this. Today, we reap the fruits of her kindness multiplied thousands of times." 3 months later, Grace Zhang had a more pronounced decline. She began to need constant medical care, though she still had moments of lucidity. "Jessica," she said during one of those moments, "I want you to know that Sarah chose well when she decided to have you as her daughter." "Why do you say that?" "Because you inherited the best of her, the ability to turn suffering into love. I learned that by watching you too. We both learned from Sarah. She was our teacher in generosity." One morning, Grace Zhang woke up particularly lucid and asked to be taken to the office one last time. "I want to see for myself how the project is coming along," she said. At the office, she became emotional seeing the photographs of all the graduating classes, the certificates of recognition, and the testimonials from the families that had been helped. "Sarah has become immortal," she said with tears in her eyes. "Her love lives on in every life we touch." "You have also become immortal, ma'am. Your decision to honor Sarah's memory created all of this. It was our decision. You, me, Michael, Philip, Chen, we all chose to turn longing into action." That afternoon, Grace Zhang felt unwell and was hospitalized. The doctors said her condition had worsened and that it was only a matter of time. Michael and Jessica took turns at the hospital, making sure she was never alone. Philip came urgently from China to say goodbye to his sister. "Grace," said Philip, holding her hand, "Sarah is waiting for you." "I know," she whispered with difficulty. "I have so much to tell her." "Tell her we took good care of her daughter. She already knows. Sarah always knew we would find each other." In her final days, Grace Zhang alternated between moments of unconsciousness and moments of surprising clarity. "Jessica," she said on one such occasion, "promise me you will continue to honor Sarah through your work." "I promise, and I will honor you too." "No need to honor me. I only did what was right." "You did much more than that. You gave me a family and a purpose. Sarah gave that. I was merely her instrument." On the last night the whole family was gathered in the hospital room. Grace Zhang opened her eyes and looked at each one with affection. "Chen," she said, "thank you for 50 years of loyalty." "It was an honor, boss." "Michael," she turned to her son, "be happy. Get married, have children, continue our family." "I will try, mother." "Philip," she squeezed her brother's hand, "send my love to Sarah." "I will, sister." Finally, she looked at Jessica. "Daughter of my heart," she said in a weak voice, "continue to be the bridge between worlds that Sarah taught you to be." "I will continue, mother of my heart." Grace Zhang smiled one last time and closed her eyes peacefully. She passed away surrounded by love, just as she had lived her final years. Grace Zhang's funeral was a celebration of life. Hundreds of people attended, including many families that had been helped by the Sarah Miller Foundation. "Mrs. Grace Zhang didn't just continue Sarah's work," said one of the immigrants at the wake. "She multiplied it 1,000 times." During the wake, Jessica discovered that Grace Zhang had left specific instructions for her final wishes. "She wants to be cremated," Michael informed, "and her ashes divided into 3 parts." "What do you mean?" "One part stays in the United States, where she built her life. One part goes to China, where she was born, and one part goes to the project, so she remains symbolically present in the work she was most proud of. The farewell ceremony took place at the Buddhist temple the family attended. The monks spoke about the cycle of life and how a person's actions continue to echo even after their passing. Grace Zhang planted gardens in 3 countries, he said. Their fruits will feed many generations. After the funeral, the family gathered to discuss the future of the project and the company. Jessica, said Michael, my mother left a letter for you. In the letter, Grace Zhang thanked her for everything and expressed her confidence in the future of the Sarah Miller Foundation. Dear Jessica, you have transformed our family and our business into something that transcends money and success. Sarah would be proud to see that her daughter has become the bridge she always dreamed she would be. Continue to be that bridge. The world needs more people like you and Sarah. 6 months after the passing of Grace Zhang, the Sarah Miller Foundation was officially expanded to 5 more countries. Jessica traveled to personally inaugurate each new branch. Your mother and Mrs. Grace Zhang are smiling down from above, said Philip during the inauguration of the branch in Japan. I'm sure they are, and probably planning our next steps. What do you mean? I have a feeling this project will grow beyond anything we can imagine right now. Jessica's intuition was correct. In the following years, the Sarah Miller Foundation became a global reference in cultural integration programs. Universities began studying its methods, and other countries created similar projects. Sarah Miller has become a global symbol of how one person can impact the world, wrote an international newspaper in a feature about the project. 5 years after Grace Zhang's death, Jessica was in Beijing to inaugurate the 10th branch of the project when she received an unexpected call. Jessica, it's Michael. Hi Michael, is everything okay? I have important news. Remember how my mother always said you needed to find your own family? I remember. Why? I met a very special person. We're getting married. How wonderful, tell me everything. Her name is Jennifer, she teaches English to foreigners. I met her through the project. One of our students? No, one of the volunteer teachers. She's been working with us for 2 years. Jessica was moved. Jennifer was a dedicated woman who had fallen in love with the project and Sarah Miller's philosophy. Your mother would be very happy. I'm sure, and I have a special request for you. What is it? I want you to be my best woman. You're my sister at heart. Of course I accept. When will it be? On the anniversary of my mother's death. We want her to be there symbolically. Michael and Jennifer's wedding was a celebration of the continuation of the Zhang family. The ceremony took place in the garden of the house where Grace Zhang had lived, decorated with flowers she loved. Today, we're not just celebrating a wedding, said Jessica in her speech as best woman. We're celebrating the continuation of a legacy of love that Sarah Miller began and Grace Zhang multiplied. During the party, Philip announced another surprise. The Chinese government has decided to create an official program based on the Sarah Miller Foundation. It will be implemented in all provinces of the country. This means Sarah's model will reach billions of people, Jessica realized. Sarah Miller has officially become a posthumous ambassador of world peace, joked Chen. 2 years after Michael's wedding, Jessica received news that she would be an honorary grandmother. Jennifer was pregnant. We want to name the girl Sarah, shared Michael emotionally. Your mother would be thrilled. And you, how do you feel about being promoted to grandma? Honored. Sarah Miller will have a great-granddaughter who will grow up knowing her story. When little Sarah Zhang was born, Jessica was at the hospital with the entire family. Holding the baby in her arms, she felt a special connection. Hello, Sarah, she whispered to the child. Your great-grandmother was a very special person. I'll tell you all about her when you grow up. The baby opened her eyes and stared at Jessica with curiosity, as if understanding the importance of that moment. She has the eyes of the first Sarah, observed Chen emotionally. And she'll probably have her heart too, said Jennifer. In the following years, Jessica dedicated herself to documenting the entire history of the Zhang family and the Sarah Miller Foundation. She wanted to ensure future generations would know about the legacy being built. Why is it so important to record everything? Asked Michael. because stories like Sarah's get lost if they're not preserved. And this story needs to inspire other people for generations. Are you writing a book? I'm writing our story. The story of how small acts of kindness can transform the world. The book, Sarah Miller, The Bridge Between Worlds, was published in English, Chinese, and Mandarin. All proceeds from the sales were entirely directed to the project, allowing for further expansion. Sarah became a posthumous best-selling author, joked Philip. She deserves all this fame. She was always a star, she just didn't know it. At the book launch, Jessica gave a speech about the importance of preserving the stories of ordinary people who do extraordinary things. Sarah Miller wasn't famous, she wasn't rich, she had no political power. But she had something more powerful, the ability to love unconditionally and to see possibilities where others see problems. 10 years after Grace Zhang's death, the Sarah Miller Foundation was present in 20 countries and had directly benefited over 50,000 families. If someone had told Sarah that a domestic worker would become a worldwide symbol of cultural integration, she wouldn't have believed it, reflected Jessica during an interview. What do you think she would say if she could see all this? She'd probably ask when we're going to stop talking about her and start helping more people. And what's the next step for the project? We want to create a program for orphan children, teaching multiple languages and cultures. Sarah always said that children can learn anything if you teach them with love. At the celebration of the project's 15th anniversary, a special surprise was prepared. Thousands of people who had been helped by the program sent thank you videos. Sarah Miller changed my life by teaching me that being different is being special, said one of the beneficiaries. Thanks to the project, I found work, learned English, and brought my family from China, testified another. My children speak 3 languages and know 2 cultures. They are citizens of the world thanks to Sarah Miller, shared an emotional mother. Watching the videos, Jessica couldn't hold back her tears. Sarah never imagined that teaching Chinese to a child would result in all this, she said. Yes, she did, disagreed Chen. Sarah always knew you were special. That's why she prepared you so well. Today, 20 years after that meeting at the mall, Jessica leads a global organization that connects cultures across 5 continents. She never married, dedicating herself entirely to the project that became her life. Don't you miss having your own family? People often ask. I do have my family, she replies. I have thousands of adopted children scattered around the world, all united by Sarah Miller's legacy. Little Sarah Zhang, now 15 years old, speaks English, Chinese, and Mandarin fluently. She volunteers for the project during school breaks. Aunt Jessica, she asked recently, when I grow up, can I take over the project? Of course you can, but only if you promise to continue honoring your great-grandmother Sarah's spirit. I promise. I want her to be proud of me. She already is proud. Wherever she is, Sarah Miller is smiling, seeing that her love continues to multiply through the generations. One afternoon, Jessica was visiting the grave where Grace Zhang's ashes were placed when a young Chinese woman approached. Sorry to bother you, said the girl in hesitant English. Are you Jessica Miller? Yes, I am. Can I help you? My name is Lucy Chen. My family was helped by the Sarah Miller Foundation 10 years ago. Today, I graduated from medical school. How wonderful. Congratulations. I want to give back. I want to work with the project helping immigrants with health issues. It would be fantastic to have you on our team. That's what Sarah Miller did, right? Turned help received into help offered? Exactly. And now you will continue that cycle. As they walked together through the cemetery, Jessica reflected on how Sarah's influence continued to expand. Every person helped became a multiplier of kindness. Sarah, she whispered mentally, you did it. Your love has become eternal. A gentle breeze swayed the flowers on the grave, as if Sarah was answering that she always knew it would be this way. End of story. So, dear listener, what did you think of this touching story? Tell us in the comments which part moved your heart the most. Do you believe small gestures can truly transform the world like Sarah Miller did? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if this story stirred something in you, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other stories that will move and inspire. Thank you so much for your company.